Super Professional Intro Part 2.
Hey folks, welcome to the Moose School Podcast, episode number 2. The aim of this podcast is to kind of shine a light on people who you otherwise wouldn't really hear about, and the aim kind of being normal people who we meet day to day. I know, having the studio firsthand, that like people are quite extraordinary in general. Everybody has their own little quirks and things that are quite cool. So what we're looking to do is kind of bring a bit of awareness to the things that are relatable to most people and maybe things that aren't talked about so much. So we'll continue to do that today with episode number 2 with Mr. Keith Wall, who's a friend of mine, a member of the gym for the last
5 years?
5 years, on and off, let's say.
On and off, yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
A bit about myself, a background. Well, I am 37. I am a separated father of 2 beautiful daughters, 8-year-old and a 5-year-old who's 5 this week. Come from Ballyfermot, grew up in Ballyfermot, went to school in Ballyfermot, went to college in Ballyfermot as well before I sort of moved on then to do accountancy and then progressed my career from there. Grew up playing a fair amount of sport, played a lot of soccer growing up. I'm saying soccer now because I'm living in the US the last year, so that's pretty embarrassing already. But yeah, played a lot of football growing up, like played GA in school, in primary school, then went to secondary school, played with like Cherry Orchard, some good local football teams.
Okay.
So I did that for years, yeah, played for CE Ranch then for a good few years. It was okay, but really enjoyed it, and that's all we did. Sure, when we were younger, we just went out on the road, played football all day, and were called in for dinner, and sometimes went in and sometimes we didn't. Play a lot of golf, still try to play a good bit now, and then table tennis was my little forte. And when I was younger, when I was in secondary school, I was an All-Ireland champion at different age groups, so really loved that. That was something that I really excelled in from a sports perspective when I was growing up, but I always dabbled in multiple sports, but that sort of ended at college when, college work gets in the way and you discover women and alcohol. So.
Well, it's really interesting. I didn't know you were as good at so many things. You didn't mention kickboxing again. I know Keith quite well, so I have a bit of an insight that I'll highlight if you don't. Yeah, really interesting. I think it's kind of a characteristic to be able to do many things well. Then you've obviously had, like, you have principles or you have something inside you that means you can do things across different spectrums. Yeah, which I think has brought you into kind of being good in business and what you do. It's the first thing you brought up, so let's kind of talk about that. So, what characteristics do you think brought you to be able to do football and table tennis and be really good at it, and kickboxing and all that sort of stuff, and then into the business world? What is it about you that you think is?
Yeah, I think I've always almost been a generalist. Something you wouldn't realise when you're a kid, that you're a generalist, right? It's something more when you grow older, especially when you're in work, that like you're a generalist. You're either a complete expert at something and that's what you stick with, or you're interested in different things and then you just become proficient to a certain level at different things. And that's what I did growing up as a kid. I just love sport. Got out, tried again, never sort of focused or put my entire energy into any one completely. So I never got to the stage where I was going to be like, we all dreamed of being professional footballers, but never got to that stage where I thought like, oh, I'm going to be a professional sports person for my career. But just like kickboxing, I just didn't realise how much I actually did. Yeah, so like at one stage I think I was doing kickboxing, football, table tennis and golf, and probably something else as well at that stage. But yeah, being a generalist, I just liked snooker, pool. There's a lot of stuff. I had a pool table actually in my shed, which was I was very lucky. Like, I call it shed. My dad killed me for calling it shed. We were lucky we had a big long garden, and he sort of built before I was born. He built a big concrete shed, which was big enough to have a full size pool table in it. Like, so not your pub pool table, so a full size one. So I was lucky I could just go out there in the evenings and play. So I became good at pool as well. Yeah. But again, it's more, as I said, like I became decent at like a lot of things. I never thought I was amazing at anything in general, and I just enjoyed that because you just meant you just learn a lot of things. You met a lot of different people, and then I think I applied that a bit then when I sort of got into my work career. It was my grandmother and my grandfather both did bookkeeping / accountancy, and numbers was always sort of in some way my strong point. I was never a great student. Like, I got decent grades, but from a study perspective, I don't think I wouldn't say I didn't fulfill like what I probably could have done. I just didn't have the focus or like that sort of dedication to do it, and I always felt like got myself to a level that was good enough to get to the next stage. Like, grand, I didn't have to sweat too much and whatever. So that sort of backfired on me when I was doing my leaving cert, because I picked all the business type subjects: economics, biz org, accountancy. Failed accountancy, which is an interesting fact that some people know, some people don't, because I went on to become an accountant. Failed accountancy, went on and did business for 2 years in Ballyfermot College Further Education. So I did a post-leaving cert course. Like, didn't go and do a degree, certificate, whatever, because I didn't get a great leaving cert, because I basically didn't put the effort into it.
Too busy playing sports.
Barely studied, to be honest. Like, you know, I always learned more, and still do, from doing rather than sitting in a book or listening in class. I always learn more from actually physically doing. So when I went into college, I adapted way better to that, because it wasn't like route based, learn this book. It was, you know, here's a case study, here's a problem, you know, go solve it, figure it out, take 2 weeks, come back in a week, you know, think about things. So I really enjoyed that. Did that for 2 years. Had the chance then. I applied to go to have a degree, because sure, like, that's what everyone was doing. Everyone said you needed a degree. I decided against that. I just didn't think doing another 2 years of college and doing a degree was for me.
Okay.
I enjoyed the 2 years I was there, but I just didn't think it was for me. And I got the opportunity of working. I did a short work placement in an accountancy practice in Ranelagh, Rathmines, and they offered me a job to come as a trainee accountant. So obviously I had to do exams for that, and again, didn't study a lot. Tried my best, failed a couple of times, but I really knew that's what I wanted to do, and so took a break at some stage during that sort of that studying for the accountancy, which really helped me. Took about 18 months off, and then went back and just lashed them all out and finished in a year and got my qualification. Spent 5 years doing that before I moved on into
Cool. There's a couple of interesting things there that we could kind of talk about. One is learning environment, and I think we'll probably talk about later about the work structure, you know, but there's also, we're not going kind of hard on this, but like school structure. It's not for everybody. It's a system, and it's designed to get you, you know, to college to get a job, and it's part of a bigger system, which is quite straightforward, I think. No big conspiracy here, nothing too crazy. In that situation, I assume from you being so good at so many sports earlier, you had intuition that you just did things and you took the action, and you kind of knew that was how you learned. I mean, it's obviously not the case for everybody, but in that situation, if your daughters were the same, what would your advice be to them if they're in school and they're struggling with studying for something? Would you say it's not a big deal, it's only an exam, and there's so many other things you could do or ways you can do it? I'm coming at this from an angle where, like, if someone had dyspraxia, for instance, or some learning difficulties, or an attention, you know, deficit disorder, whatever you want to call it or label it, how would you go about working around that?
Yeah, it's not even just that though. It's not just like, oh, you have an issue that may affect you in the way you learn or how you consume information, and manage to sit in an exam and like basically splurt it all out over a page. I think it's like, you know, some people it's just not what they want to do, but like the environment and the culture that like we grew up in, like we're the same age, we got to that stage. You didn't go to college at all, you know, and I know a lot of people that I went to school with, well, coming from the areas that we came from, not a lot of people did go to college, but it was starting to become that way of, oh, this is what everyone does, it's free education, you need it to get a job, you know, that's just not true. And like it's just, and it's taken a long time since even when like we finished school, which is like 20 years ago now, which is horrendous to think of. Yeah. That like Google and like Facebook and like these large companies now, like only in the last few months have announced like, oh, you no longer need a college education degree, university education to apply for their jobs. It's not a key requirement anymore. Because people are realising I said it was different type of learning for me, it was, but at the end of the day it still is rote learning. It's not like learning in real life, solving problems, which is what a lot of stuff is about, just solving problems, whether that be you're training for something or you're doing something in business and you're trying to figure it out. It doesn't matter, everything's just a problem. It's not an issue, it's just a problem that needs to be solved. And my parents as well were, they wanted me to go to college. They had that thing because they never did. Like they went as far as like their junior certs or inter certs, whatever it was called. So they always sort of, I wouldn't say pushed, but like, it was a thing that they didn't just go, oh yeah, school, whatever. It was more like, it's important, study. They tried to help, but they never forced it upon me or my sister either, so it was just like, I think I'd have that same approach with Avian and Anya, with the girls. They're like, do what you love, what's important, what do you want to do, and support them in that, because I think that's way more important. Because so many people end up doing stuff that they just don't want to do, and then they feel it's almost too late before they change their minds. Like I still don't think I'm particularly 100% at what I want to do, but I know the path I've taken is getting me to there.
I think at the core of it, you've kind of set yourself like you're by nature a problem solver, but you're also somebody who's just like, fuck it, do it, just do the thing, and the stuff happens. Like,
get shit done.
Yeah, it's true. And we always joke about Keith because he basically just says, just get it done, and it's a lovely, like, it's nice and it's a nice mantra to be like. I find like us the lads group or whatever, like we always end up repeating it back to you. It's like, just get it done. It's like it's become a thing that it's like, dude, if you're to live by our mantra, it's like, well, that's not a bad one.
I'm a bit of a procrastinator though, for someone who says get shit done. But it's like I procrastinate. It's funny, like I procrastinate on the things that are probably more important sometimes in the personal life than just actually getting stuff done that needs to be done. I don't know. That's something I'm actually working on and trying to change. Like, I'm not a huge procrastinator, but like, I think it's important that when there's a problem in front of you or you need to do something, like the longer you think about it, the bigger of a problem it's going to be. Or if you think it's a problem, it is a problem, or it's an issue rather than just, it's just something I need to do. Or the one thing why I think I can become a procrastinator is I feel I'm good at prioritizing. So it's those little things that I nearly push them I nearly forget about them rather than them going to the end of the list to get to when the other stuff's done. I just actually drop them to the end of the list, going, I'll do that, I'll get that done, because there's more important stuff to do over here. And then I do that and I completely forget about that, and it comes back to bite me in the ass sometimes.
Which it's probably tough when on the one side you're saying like business, and then you're saying the thing you're procrastinating is personal life, and it's not like you have business things that you do and business things you procrastinate with, and then personal life things you do and personal life things you don't. Like, you're kind of separating those two things as and kind of by saying that we'll go on to that in a moment, but I think I want to stick on one thing you said is, like, I think being a problem solver by nature is really good, and you call yourself a generalist, but I think people can be like generally bad at things or generally good at things. But I think it's fair to say, because if you're coming from a point of like, okay, we said you like to get shit done and just do it, and you consider yourself a problem solver. So those two things mean whatever the task is ahead of you, if it sparks your interest, or, I mean, I don't know if the sports thing was a competitive you or whether it was just you being in the moment enjoying what you did. I think a lot of us have that stuff in our childhood and our teens, so we just get drawn to certain things. For some people it's movies and illustrations and all that sort of stuff. But I think I love to go from a place of principle, and I think of character and all that things, and the things that define us are very often core elements that just can sprout to different areas. And I think that kind of leads us to wherever we want to go in life, but the core value stays the same. When you talk about seeing things as a problem solver, it's nice because, again, I'm still getting to know you, and this is a lovely chance to do so as well. When you say you see everything as a problem, but then there's so much complexity in life and dealing with people, which you do as well. Can you elaborate a little bit more on, I mean, you're choosing to solve problems, it's your chosen job. Essentially you're like a team leader, you're a manager, you deal with people directly, and then you deal with big things where you're like, I have to put him here or there, do this, you need to do that, and all that sort of stuff. What way do you go about doing that, and you obviously throw yourself into the deep end with it, but have you a process to doing that sort of stuff, or?
Yeah, I do, and like, before I talk about that, you said about the generalist thing, that if, what was I going to say? Oh yeah, you were saying like, you're generally good at stuff. Oh, this, sorry.
On your
Whoa. You're generally good at stuff. or you're generally bad at stuff. I don't know if that's like a true reflection of people. Like it's just maybe they're the people who haven't found out whether they're a generalist or an expert. You know, and that's the thing I've found, and I do apply. It's something I apply in work. Yeah, I applied to sport. I'm highly competitive. Like anyone who knows me anyway well knows that. Like and that's even if I'm shit at something. I'm highly competitive against whoever it is I'm competing against. So I'll try my hardest, and then I give up. But I don't ever give up. But like I'll try my hardest. But the whole like approach that I take from a problem solving perspective is, and I didn't realize I never really called myself a problem solver until the last couple of years, because it's like people ask you what do you do and stuff like that, you know, and you can't say that as the answer. But I realized in the last few years as my career progressed, oh yeah, actually. Shit, that's what I do. I always realised I was a generalist, you know, because I never put my hand up to say I'm an expert in any one thing. It was always something that I learned quite early in my career, because I never really wanted to be, like, because I can't focus on one thing and go, oh yeah, I'm just going to do this. There's too much going on, and I just like the involvement and all sorts of different things and the challenges. It's all about the challenge half the time. But the whole sort of managing the problem solving pieces, I always start at the end, where so many people start at the start.
Okay.
You know, they go, oh, this is the problem, and they go, okay, how do I start to solve this? It's like, no, like, what does the end point look like? If you don't know what the end point looks like, the end point just could be a question, you know. If you actually don't have a clear vision in your mind of like, what is it I'm trying to succeed at here, and if you don't work back from that, it makes it 100 times more difficult.
Okay.
Because you work your way along, then you hit a hurdle, because you didn't identify the hurdle before you started. And it goes down to simple stuff like, oh, today I need to do the gym in the morning, I need to go and pay a bill, I need to pick up the kids, you know, and then I need to get back because there's a guy delivering a washing machine, you know. But like, I don't start with, how do I get to the gym in the morning? I start with, what time's your man coming out the washing machine? It is even simple things like that. I think it's a good way to apply to anything. As I said, I never realised that's the way I taught for only in the last few years, when I had to do it more in work. And I've been lucky enough to be managing teams for quite a long period in my career, like probably 10 of the 12 years I've worked in the business I'm working in now, Petty Powers, and you just get to learn a lot from trying to manage people, and like how everyone ticks differently. And the thing about, does some people just like that, I want to give you that one task. Some people like to be given 10 tasks. You know,
it's cool. I'm going to check the camera as well, but what I want to ask you as well is, because this is one of those relatable things as well, of at least people who I admire and I connect with as well, is you obviously have a passion for people. So we'll have a quick chat about that. Just make sure this is still filming, and we are good. So yeah, you have already just identified that you know that people react differently to different things, and that someone needs to be managed one way, different people need to be managed differently, or treated differently, or talked to differently, or connect with it. So can you talk about your passion for people, which is obviously an underlying thing?
Yeah, well, like, some people say to me, like, you're not a people person.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it's how I probably socially interact sometimes, where, you know, I hate bullshit. You know, I just, you know, and I've no time for bullshit or, you know, small talk or whatever, like, and I'm bad at that. Like, some people are good at it, and I think it can be a really good social work skill as well if you can do it, because it shows like respect and appreciation for other people. I don't think I do it in a way that does that to people, but it's just like, yeah, I am a bit like that. But I think it's like I've learned over the years, and I think I'm only like, people, you saying it to me like you're a people person, like, it's just really nice thing to hear when someone says that to you, like, you know, especially when it's something you've been striving and thought you were doing, and then others have said you're not, you know, because then you think, what the fuck am I doing wrong? So I think that's why over the last few years I've realised, actually, I don't really want to be a manager, I want to be a leader.
Okay.
That can sound a bit obnoxious, because people think, leader, you're leading. It's not really that way, and the way I say it from a leadership perspective is, like a leader identifies like the people who are good at what they do and try and help them to get better. You know, and that's the things I try and do, and that's why I say when I'm a generalist, like in work, like people that like ask me a question and they think because you know I run a certain part of the business I should know it, and they get shocked when I go, oh, I have a clue, and they're like, we're waiting on you to answer it. I'm like, no, I heard that guy over there to answer that, like, you know. And that's the way I see it from a people person perspective, like, you know. And I'm going to get the chance to do more and more of that and be involved in like directing culture in the company I work in, and like that's something I want to get more involved with. And yeah, so I think that's the way my passion for people has come. It probably didn't come across in the right way as I was younger, and I think it's come across better in the last few years because I've identified actually the way to do it. But I've always tried to do that. Like,
I always speak about depth of connection versus width. So I'll reference this again as like width to me is like having 200 or 250 members in the studio. Depth is having 50 and knowing them well, and letting that depth scale if it does, and if it doesn't, don't ever lose that depth. And so I think it speaks a lot to me when someone has the eye to see potential in somebody. I think one of the most important things you could ever offer somebody as a senior or just even as a friend or whatever is the moment you say, I believe in you because I think you can do this. And then the person who doesn't know yet goes, oh, and then you're like, oh, go on. And then they do it and they're a new person because of it, just because you saw it. And so I think it's a remarkable skill that you have, even in a workforce where somebody may not be in a high role, but like, no, you're really good at this, like, do it. And then, you know, just that, like, that moment where somebody's like, okay.
And that's the thing, and that's the thing I was talking about, the difference between I think the leadership and the management, because I think like I can manage.
I agree.
Like, it's a difficult skill when you have to manage people. Before people think, oh yeah, you're just managing people. It's not. It's fucking one of the hardest things you'll ever do if you have to manage people. And I am by far in my wider team not the best manager. But I think I do what you said well, which is like, you know, come to people and try and move them on. And it's one thing that like I'm sort of like personally proud of. Like, it's difficult sometimes to say that about yourself, like, you know. Well, it can be like, 'cause, you know, like, again, people feel like you're like blowing smoke up your own ass.
I think we come from a generation where people don't really tell us they're proud of us. So like, if I would ever find out that my dad was proud of me, it would come through a friend and possibly like a friend of a friend. Like, you know, like, you know your dad's really proud of you. You're like, oh, like, because you know, you just don't hear that growing up.
So it's difficult to say it yourself.
That's what happens, and so you're brought up in a culture where it's like, it's just, you don't speak about your feelings, you know, you know, whatever. So I try and tell my friends every now and again, all that sort of stuff. It's like, I'm proud of you, you're doing well. Like, and even if it's through a text, it's still enough of like an emotional connection where like, actually, no, go you, because I know your dad didn't tell you. Like, I just know, growing up in the 80s or whatever it was, it just doesn't happen. And so I think we should pat ourselves on the back a bit more, especially if you're working, not the moment where you've just like reaped what you've sown, but the moments that you're just still sowing it all. You go home and you're tired after a good day's work and you're like, no, go me, I'm heading where I'm heading and I'm doing well and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, pat yourself on the back. Who else is going to do it? We know by history maybe not many people.
Not many people. I think it takes like, it's the self-awareness thing of getting to that stage of you know, identifying like, oh, actually no, celebrate this for yourself and don't be ashamed that you're saying it in front of others, and then be aware of like how you act in other ways as well. You know, and that's where I said like I can look at the people that have worked with me. I may not have been the best manager ever, because I just never liked being managed myself, because I just like get shit done and doing it. I'm like, I'll figure it out. Other people don't like that. They like a bit of care and attention. They like a bit of direction. That's a bit like I'm a bit like poor on, and that can be in personal life as well as like as work life. I know we're going a bit down the work thing, but like
that's fine.
It sort of all applies, I think. And you know, I've looked at the people that have worked for me and they've all gone on or moved on to like bigger and better jobs, and I go, no, I did the right thing. Not every single one of them, but like a lot of them, I'm going, okay, they're not stagnant. What happened was what I expected to happen. I always like, there's always someone in my team I identify as going, that's the person, okay, they're really good, they're going to be able to do my job soon. So I try and do myself out of a job by trying to help them to be able to take my job. You know, and people freak out about that. Because they're going, oh, you're putting yourself out of a job. I'm like, I know, how am I supposed to like do something different? It's not even about just like moving on. It's like, how am I supposed to do something different if I go, oh, I want to do that thing over there. Well, who's going to do your job? I'm like, oh, I have a terrible team, I don't know, these people are terrible.
That's something I'd love for you to expand on a little bit more. Is having the confidence or that abundance mindset of like, okay, if they do better, I have no choice but to do better. if they do worse, one, do I want that person working with me or for me if they're not growing? And two, what does it mean for me? Like, you know, whereas, because I do this myself as well, is like you put yourself in those situations where you're like, I have to grow. And you just do that over and over and over again. And they grow and you grow and you grow. And you don't know where it's headed and what it's going to look like, but you just be like, my gut's telling me, at the very least, I'm not going to impede this person. History has proved so far you've done quite well. So.
I never do. That's the one thing I think, like, I've learned a lot and become a different type of person, both in my personal life and in my work life over the years. But there's definitely one thing I know that, like, I've always tried to do right from the very start, which is, like, where I can help or try and give someone a little boost. Even it's not even by actually physically spending time with them. It might just be the comment to say, you're really good at that, you know, you should do more of that, or, like, you know, have a bit of faith in yourself, or be confident, or whatever it might be. And yeah, I think that's just really important, because I think that's something that translates over to, like, normal life, personal life. It's like management doesn't, but, like, just generally being
caring
a person, like, does. Yeah, and, like, we all make mistakes, and we're not. Like, I know I've fucked up plenty of times, you know, which is something we should always admit. If you're wrong, you're wrong. You know, it's fucking the hardest things to do. You know, and in my personal life, I've always found that a difficult thing to do, which is to admit when I'm wrong. I'm stubborn as fuck. I haven't done that I'm stubborn as fucking work, but I haven't done it as much where I just go, that was me, I fucked up, let's figure it out. But yeah, there was a second part of that question you asked, and I've lost my train of thought.
We'll follow the flow where you're going, though, because I think it's a nice time you brought it up kind of twice as well. As, like, you talked about being procrastinating in personal life, kind of almost more than business life as well. And I know your history, and with respect to everybody who's involved. So if you want to talk a little bit more about kind of that, if you feel like the procrastination is something, or that inability to hold your hand up and say when you fucked up, whatever like that. Don't have to be, you don't want to, but it's just knowing you might be a nice chance to just.
Yeah, like look, I said at the start I'm separated. I won't go into any detail for the other person's sake.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, like, definitely part of why we ended up in that position where, like, you know, I have two beautiful kids, you know, had a relationship with, like, a wonderful person for years, and still love her to bits. And we got on reasonably well, which is good for the kids, like, you know. But, like, you go through life going, you meet someone, you get married, you have kids, you know, you happily ever after, or you live in an Irish marriage, which just means you live together ever after. And yeah, I procrastinated about doing certain things, like, and that probably was, well, it definitely was one of the defining things that, like, you know, ended up in, like, our marriage breaking up. So yeah, it wasn't the biggest thing, but it definitely was one of the issues that caused it. And I was like, this is because you're procrastinating, you know. And you know, I've tried to change that in my personal life, done simple things, but I think I've definitely stopped doing it when it really matters. I think I might procrastinate about, you know, I have to have a look at that bill, or I have to, like, ring whatever or get that fixed. But, like, when it comes to telling someone something or going in action in it, I do it.
Cool.
You know, and I think what helped me to really realise that was, I'll move on from the relationship, but talk about, like, post a relationship where, you know, I thought I could handle all this, and I'll be grand and I'll be fine and what have you, and I just knew, like, that I was progressing, but there was still stuff that I just wasn't getting over.
Okay.
Yeah, it's tough for me to talk about.
That's fine. You don't have to.
No, I won't go into it, but I think it's important as well at the same time, because it's something that I've beat the drum on, and like, being involved with from a charity perspective for the last few years. And I think, if you know me, I've always been one to say, Jesus, if you've something to say, just talk about it, like, you know. And it's one thing that, like, the gentleman's group, I don't know if we mentioned it, you spoke about, like, the tight group of friends that we sort of developed in the studio over the last few years, has helped me to sort of get to that point as well, you know, where we've all gone through different things, where we've said, like, we just talk about it. And I keep telling everyone that, and I didn't.
Yeah, it's
You
still
know,
tough.
like spoke about and like leaned on people when and like you were a huge help, you know, around that time when like we broke up and stuff. But it took me like a year before I realized I need to actually talk to someone that's not like someone I know.
Yeah.
You know, when I went to counselling, and I only went for a short period of time, and it was a bit of a game changer for me. Like, you know,
Right.
I only went a few sessions, but you know, it's different when you're. Sometimes when you're talking to a friend or family member, they're almost trying to solve the problem for you, you know, rather than listen. Because I think listening is really difficult.
Yeah, it's very hard to be impartial when you.
Yeah,
Right.
you know, and like listening is like one of the hardest things I think is to do. Anytime. Maybe we already spoke about it a couple weeks ago. But like literally when you sit down with a counsellor, they just make you listen to yourself. You know, they don't tell you what to do, you know, but then they really make you think. And it really helped me to actually take that next step and move on and change. And as we all are, we're all a work in progress and we all work on. But I think it definitely is something. I'm not saying to people like that they should go and see counsellors, but they should always feel they should talk. And like I've gone through the unfortunate experience twice. Like I haven't gone through it. I've been like it's happened in the wider group of friends that I like went to school with, that like their brothers both committed suicide, quite close to each other over the space of a couple of years. When I was in my early 20s, one of the guys, his father then went on to be a big advocate for Pieta House and really helped push that sort of charity to where it is today, like just by sort of getting it out there and like becoming involved in it. And then I did some stuff like we ran some golf classics just to raise money for charity, and it was just something that I felt I need to have to do this. I felt like I have an opportunity to help in some way, and I did it. And obviously if you're getting involved in something like that, you obviously need to believe in it's important to talk, you know, and I didn't cop on for years, but it's something I think is really important, is just like talk about these things. And
yeah, suicide is extremely close to home. I mean, even if you look at the statistics, but if you were to actually talk to people on the street, like suicide has to be close to home for most people. It's up there with cancer and all that sort of stuff. Like, so these tragedies are just so close to home. I think from my side, I mean, part of the greater purpose I can see with what I'm doing as things expand is to try to get stuff at the core, so not waiting until it's a huge issue, but try and change the culture. So we're hopefully doing with this podcast a little bit, and we'll continue to, but try and change the culture that we can talk about stuff and reflect on stuff and make it not a stigma to see a counsellor, not a stigma to say I'm struggling, not, you know, all of these things, because life is a struggle. It's a beautiful struggle, but if we do it by ourselves, if we don't talk, if we fester things, if we, you know, so I think one of the best things we can do is spread the message. And I think it's almost, and it might sound wrong, but I obviously don't mean it in the wrong way, like donating to a charity it's kind of distance, like, you know, you're helping the charity and everybody knows what charity is, but you can't touch it, you know, you can't, and they can touch the lives of the people who struggle with it. It might be too late for the people they're trying to help, but you can help the person beside you, you know, and you can ask the person or text the person day to day, alright, you know, one of the questions we have down here is, are you happy? And so I'd like to lead with that question, but it's a bit of an awkward way to start a conversation, but like, how many times does someone ask you, you happy? Are you alright? Like, and it's not even in a deep way, or just even like an arm on a shoulder, like, you alright? Like, just those little things that are like, so I think trying to change the culture around things is the best way I could see to do things going forward. And we'll still struggle, but we won't struggle alone, and you know, maybe it'll be the difference between someone feeling like they want to kill themselves, or if they're just like, fuck, like, you know, I'll cry down the phone to somebody, or whatever it may be. But you know, the podcast ended up being kind of deep, but I think that's the stuff that needs to be talked about, and a lot of stuff you've talked about has been amazing so far. Yeah, just think that's super important. So bravo for taking the steps you took and all that, and life is not difficult, and it's still a work in progress, obviously. But yeah, good shit.
Yeah, it is what it is. And like, I think it's taking the steps probably before it gets too far. Yeah. Where we none of us realise, because we bury our head in the sand on these things, like, you know.
Let's go check my camera again. It's still recording. We're still new podcast. We are still good.
As the sunlight drops.
It's grand. Cool. Just to not to glaze over that as well. So you said you're kind of working on enhancing that sort of stuff. Is there anything you're trying to work to bring up your kind of weak points or stuff you want to make better, like not procrastinating on things or prioritizing things or whatever? Is there kind of active work you're doing, or is it just kind of consciously or subconsciously day to day, or a bit more aware of things that you weren't happy about before?
I think I'm just more self-aware.
Okay.
I still hold on to a lot of stuff. I think it's hard when you've done it for years, or you've done it for a while, like to like forget the past or to change stuff overnight. I just don't think it happens. I just think being self-aware, you know, which most people I don't think are.
Okay.
Maybe I'm being like, maybe that's me pointing fingers, but I just don't think like most people are, you know, entirely probably just very few people who are entirely self-aware, but I think there's a lot of people who just are not self-aware at all, and I definitely was one of them. I think I'm way more self-aware than I ever was, and like the counselling part is part of that. It doesn't take going to a counsellor to become self-aware, like, you know, but it takes like you like looking and talking to yourself, and like when you do stuff for yourself, not thinking it's selfish, just realising, oh, it's self-care, for want of a like word that keeps banding around, but it's just more like, oh no, actually, hang on, you know, I'm important. If I'm not right, how can I be right? And like I feel I have to be right because I have 2 kids. So I have responsibilities outside yourself, especially if you've like a partner or you have kids. Like, you know, it's important that if you're right, and like taking time for yourself or doing the things that make you happy, you know, that's really important to do, because I just think if you don't, you'll blame someone else for it, or you just will become down in a rut, you know. And I think for me, the whole self-awareness of acting in a certain way, being conscious of other people's feelings, being conscious of what like you need to potentially do to help people, really comes as well more when you're more aware of like what you need first. And I think that's, and I just really feel that way with the kids, like, you know, is that shit, like if I'm like moping around, or, you know, if I'm not prioritising and I'm off somewhere else, like, you know, I need to figure out when I am with them, like, you know, how best to sort of help them to grow and like be happy and be self-aware from a very young age. Because like as much as like everyone talks about, oh, the internet and Instagram and likes, fuck me, I've actually more realised how bad it gets, like, you know. And like, and I'm not someone who really gives a shit what other people think, but when you look at it and you go, oh, it's a real weird world we're living in, yeah, but it's like, it's good as well, like we're moving on, it's technology, it's a way of doing things differently. But I think like if someone who like bad self-esteem or not self-aware even of the bad self-esteem, like it can, I think nowadays can be tough. I mean, you're looking at a kid growing up now compared to we went through our own fucking emotional and mental traumas of our parents being Irish. You know, I'm bottling everything up and like not being like, now we had it, like everyone had a different level, like I was fairly lucky, but they still had that bit of like, you know, old Irishness in them. And like I'm trying to go, oh fuck, I can't, like there's too much going on here, I need to make sure like my kids like have like high self-esteem, self-confidence, like not take everything to heart, not like, you know, be worrying about everything that other people say. Like, who gives a fuck what other people say? Like, it's not what's important. Like, as long as you know and believe that you're acting in a manner that's like true to yourself and has good values, who gives a shit what other people say? Like, I think that's like gonna be like a difficult thing for us, and you're in a similar position where you're trying to sort of get that in from an early age, and it's not easy, because you see that I've had conversations with like my eldest when she came home from school, and said, you know, she'd be upset because someone has said X, Y, and Z. Like, I'm like, doesn't matter, but it's very difficult to communicate that to a child. You know,
I think that's where I kind of clung on to what you said earlier, or what you displayed earlier, was like it's characteristics. So if all you can do is ingrain like principles, standards, characteristics in your child, and obviously they'll be born with a certain amount of them. But like if they have those core principles, all the other stuff. I mean, we're gonna live our life anyway, right? My daughter Lucy's gonna fall over, all that sort of stuff. You know, there's gonna be days, you know, potential bullying, the whole shebang's in it. So if you have, you know, strength and integrity and, you know, self-belief and all that sort of stuff, it can just be developed over years of different mediums, of whether it's sports or whether it's conversations or whether it's art or whatever it may be. But like, I think Tom Wexler actually said it to me before Lucy was born, which was 3-4 years ago or whatever. He's like, he had heard from a friend of his he had heard from a friend of his that like when your child is born, they're not necessarily your child, they're the world's child. And I was like, boom, like just mic drop. That was like, you know, it's my job to raise her, but to raise her to be in the world. Like, go, like, you know, to a certain extent, I can't control the stuff that goes on. You know, we don't know if you or I are going to get hit by a bus tomorrow. There's stuff you can't control externally, but things you can do is always have a safe space at home and someone to talk to and someone to hug, and, you know, they say it takes a village to raise a baby, so hopefully we have a larger group of people who can talk to, or maybe I don't want to talk to dad today, maybe I'll talk to Uncle Keith, you know, stuff like that. So I think that's quite important, and just to realise that the world happens and there's damage limitation and all that sort of stuff. And
Well, it's mad that you hit on the point there about the things you can't control, and that's what most people end up hanging their hat on and like getting worried about, or just let them distract it. And it's like, even back to what I said about problem solving and stuff, is like, you know, the things you can't control, forget about them. Like literally, if you cannot control it, you can't get upset about it. And we all do. I'm telling you, I'm definitely guilty of doing it, but like for the vast majority of things that I do on a daily basis, like if I can't control it, it just doesn't even come on my radar. Like it's just like I can't control it, you know. So just, you know, and they're the things usually that people worry about the most, like get anxiety about, panic about, because they're like, oh, what if that he does that or she does this, or like, what if they do? What if they don't? You know, you can't control. You physically can't control it.
yeah, a good friend of mine says worrying is like a rocking chair. It gives you something to do but gets you nowhere.
Yeah.
So anytime I think about it, like, because I would have struggled with anxiety and worried about things a lot when, like, I lost my hair when I was quite young because of it.
I thought that was
So you kind of talked about it a little bit, but could you say a bit more clearly what drives you to do what you do? And I think very much it's about your kids, but then you were like that before your kids were born. So
Yeah.
what's the main drive behind why you do what you do?
Yeah, it was like, it's the kids now, but I still have, as I sort of mentioned a few minutes ago, it's like the selfishness of like, I want to do this as well for me because this makes me happy, and if I'm happy or content or fulfilled.
What makes you happy? What about it makes you happy?
I don't know, being busy, being challenged, like making other people happy through extension, or solving something, and seeing it come to fruition, seeing it being successful, whatever that might be. And you were talking about the drive of what I do now, and so that mostly is like, you know, when I go in to work in the morning, if I end up doing something, or, you know, helping or directing or being part of doing something that like makes a customer happy, or a member of like my team happy, or someone else, it's like, oh, achieved.
Cool.
You know, so I always feel like that challenge, doing something different, you know, so just overcoming a challenge, solving a problem, and I go, okay, this is great. I literally, it just so happens that I work for the same company for 13 years, like multiple reasons why I didn't leave it, like when I've had opportunities to do so, because I've always been someone who again, as I said, can't focus, don't want to stick to one thing and keep moving on. And like, I've now moved away from not doing like accountancy, which was my thing, but it was all about business for me, and that I felt at the time. I was 16 years old, didn't believe it, so I thought, oh, this is it, this is what you do to get into business. And yeah, it worked out well for me, you know, and I've met some unbelievable people, some really smart people, some people who have like really been mentors as gone through to guide me in a way of getting me to the place I am today. Like, you can't do it on your own. Yeah, you can be strong about it, but like, you need the help of other people to get you along. And like, that's what drives me, is just like the next thing, and that's not for everybody. Like, I'm as happy and contented and feel like I've achieved if I make someone happy who just wants to, oh no, this is the job I want to do. And you sort of go, oh yeah, but like, I think you're good enough to do this. Oh no, I'm happy doing this. It's like, okay, what more can, well, yeah, but it's also like, okay, what more can I do to help you be happy with what you're doing?
Okay.
You know, because it's always identifying what's people's, I was gonna say need, but it's more like, what's their want, what's their passion, what is it that fulfills them? It's different for everybody. And I think what fulfills me is like, I've done that, achieved, challenge over, move to the next one.
Who did that for you when you were young? Because I think we don't get these traits by accident. I think largely like it's down to how we were raised or not raised by our parents, depending on how it goes. Was there someone who was that impactful for you? Because I think generally, like, I know my want to do that comes from, you know, other people and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, like I don't think to the same extent that I'm probably pushing it now from my own personal perspective. But I think through like my dad and my dad's mom and my grandfather on my mother's side, they were the three people that sort of did stuff like that, like, not that they shouldn't have, but they probably wouldn't have been expected to do.
So just leading by example.
Leading by example,
Okay.
like, you know, and even with the, like, just hard work, commitment, you know, for their family.
Yeah.
And that was, like, always one thing for me. They ended up in jobs and roles that, like, they shouldn't have because they didn't have the qualifications to get there. But they did, you know.
Success leaves clues.
Yeah, and the problem solving things and the generalist thing pushed my dad as well. He can do anything he puts his hand to, like. Now, slightly different for me because, like, I do it in one way. He does it literally with his hands, where he's like, he can pick up anything or build anything, where, like, I struggle with that stuff. Like, I'll have a go of it, but, like, don't expect, I can paint a wall, that'll be about it. Like, don't ask me to tile the floor. But yeah, they were, like, the three most influential people from a, like, oh, how should I get myself a career, a job,
Okay.
that fulfills me, that challenges me, you know.
Yeah.
And because of them not being, like, really pushing on the college thing, going, look, it's important, make sure you do it for your job, but not, like, making me feel that, like, when I made that decision not to go and get a degree, at that time and go into work, they just supported me on that one.
Brilliant.
You know, so I was always supportive from that perspective on that, and I think that's what's led me to where I've managed to get to today.
Cool. You kind of said you're already good with numbers, but is that why you chose business as your medium to do that? I'm just going to take the camera again.
Yeah, I think funny. I was never, like, I wouldn't have been doing, like, advanced maths or anything, and I'm not. I literally am. I say I'm good with numbers. I'm just a lot better at numbers than I am at words.
Okay.
So maybe that's why I stuck with that, like, you know. Whether it be speaking or like doing a letter or an email or whatever, like, you know. But it's just something I always felt comfortable with, and because I'm comfortable with not being, like, 100% right, which is why, like, that's why I didn't really go down the road of, like, oh, higher level maths or do mathematics. I'm like, yeah, I'm just not interested in working something out and it being 100% right. That's not what it's about. It's just about getting it nearly right, that it's good enough for everybody, or that people make people happy, or you get there quicker. You know, because people just worry too much about making stuff perfect. It's never going to be perfect. It's just never going to be perfect. It's just not, like, you know. And if you take that approach, you're going to be 5 years trying to make something perfect, you know, rather than getting something there that everybody thinks is nearly perfect in, like, 10 minutes. You know?
It's amazing. It's a really another good way of looking at things. Is just like, that's it. Just get it done. Just do it. Just take the step and grow wings on the way down type thing as well. It's such a virtue. Like, it's so cool.
You figure it out as you go along sometimes.
Yeah.
You know.
It's about having the courage to do that though. Like, just realize, like, what's the worst that can happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Usually nothing.
Cool. So business as your medium. It just was what happened to happen.
It just was.
Or?
Yeah, like, it just was the thing. Yeah, like, literally, like, as I said, like, my dad, like, used to do a lot of Nixers and, like, do a lot of work on the side for himself.
Yeah.
So used to see how hard he worked. He did that to provide for us. You know, so we were very lucky, and we were growing up, like, considering we grew up, like, in, like, a working class area. You know, we would have been, like, better off than others that, like, friends of mine that I would have seen, like, and, like, I had a lot of, like, respect for my dad because of that. And my grandmother was the same, grandfathers and stuff. So, yeah, it just always was like, yeah, you just trying to provide for whatever that family might be, and I still do that now. Like, I overthink it sometimes, going, oh, well, actually, you're probably fine now. You probably don't need to keep going. So for me now, yeah, it's nice to be comfortable, but it's like, it might have been about, like, the money and what, like, the comfort level I got, like, maybe it was a few years ago. For me, it's just not about that anymore. And that's not just because it can sound like, again, stuff like that. You say, like, oh, it's not about the money, or money doesn't matter to me. Oh yeah, of course it does. It is really important. But, like, why I do things now for work is not about the money anymore. Like,
the drive.
Yeah, I've made a massive move to, like, make my kids' lives more comfortable. I've made a choice to, like, spend 60% of my time in New York with my job, and because of the opportunity I got for the challenge. Yeah, there's, like, a financial upside to doing that. But for me, that helps me move on from, like, the fact that, like, I was in a relationship that broke up. The world changes, you know. So how do you move on? But yeah, it's all about challenge for me now. And I think when you get to that place, like, you know, you do feel a bit happier.
Cool. I think it's interesting the move came, like, it was one of those big choices really, like, oh, like move country to work or whatever that. I think a large part of what heals us and helps us is just taking a step for space. I remember I did this myself like 10 years ago, yeah, to like last month, 10 years ago, going to Barcelona, and the joke is that I went to live but I came home after 8 days. But for me, just taking the step, and I went with the intention to live, but just taking the step was like, oh, I need to get away, I need something, I need space. And you're changed because of it. Like, all I needed was 8 days. I was like, no, I actually got what I needed here. Buckets full of tears later, like, but came back a different person, and that's when my career began as a personal trainer. Like, I took that step to get qualified and all that after that. And so I think space, even though like it may happen over a different time frame and we confront things differently, I think space is just one of the most underrated things that people allow themselves, or, you know, think about and all that. Like, the room we're in, it's a space, and we're having a chat here. We're filling space now, and then it's left for whatever's next after that. So yeah, another good thing. What was I going to say? Yeah, so you got this big opportunity to, you essentially create a new role for yourself in the job, which I think is amazing. And this is kind of what you're saying about, you made your own job redundant by letting somebody else fill it or growing them into the thing, and then you went into a role that didn't even have a title. And then, like, you know, a few months later, you're like, oh, the title is such and such international gold member. Something. Do you want to speak about that a little bit more, about kind of the task ahead of you and the time frame?
Yeah, I suppose, like, I was getting, like I was saying a few minutes ago, that, you know, I had opportunities to leave the company I work for, but I'd never taken the step, and I didn't know whether that was because I was just too comfortable. Part of it was, like, in anything, if you're doing something for a while and, you know, like, you're getting the pat on the back that you're doing well, and, like, you're comfortable in what you're doing, and then you move to do something else that you're going, shit, maybe I'll be found out. Maybe I actually don't know what I'm doing. And if I move to another business, or, you know, another company, I'll be like, oh, I'm gone, I'm out of debt. I think that's, like, probably like 95% untrue for in the vast majority of cases for everyone. But it's just like a confidence thing. But I also just loved where I worked. It's a tough industry to be in because, like, not everyone accepts it. And I understand why. And, like, I find it tough from day to day. But I think just for people don't know, it's like I work in the gambling industry. So I work for Paddy Power for like 13 years, still work for them, but work in the States with FanDuel. It's a different brand, but it's part of the overall company. And as I said, like, I've had like people who think, oh, it's amazing, you're working for such a progressive, fun, you know, entertainment, sport company. And then others go, you know, are you happy that, like, you know, like, the guy down the corner is now an alcoholic because, like, he spent all his money on gambling? And it's like, yeah, it's like, it's home, like, you know. Yeah. It is symptomatic, but, like, I just, probably one of the reasons why I did stay in the industry was because, like, it was a company that, like, never shied away from that. Like, they, like, yeah, again, despite that no one's ever going to be perfect, there was mistakes that have been made and stuff like that, but it's just so on the front foot around, like, oh no, like, this is like bringing entertainment to life. It's a sports thing, it's another thing to layer on to make things fun, and it's a social outlet when you come to a retail perspective, which is what I've mostly been involved with over the years, like, you know. You know, if that's not there, like, you know, where do the guys go and have a cup of tea when they're retired and talk to other people? Like, it's probably better off doing that than doing the pub. I don't know, maybe or not, but, like, it's always been, like, very much so on the front of mind in anyone I've ever worked with and anyone that's ever led the company. So that's one of the reasons why I stayed there. Cool. And then sport, like, I mean, like, if you can't play it, like, if you can work close to it and be involved in it every day of the week, like, you need to, like, you're expected to go and watch it, you know. It's like, this is great, this is brilliant. So I've been doing it for years. And then, like, but over the last year, I got to a stage again in my career. I was like, right, I'm ready for the next thing. It just wasn't the next thing. It just wasn't there, and there wasn't the opportunity. Spent 6 months annoying the hell out of my boss, like, where he kept saying, you're putting yourself out of a job. I'm like, I know, I'm trying to, I need to do something different. And then something just popped up out of the blue, which was a change in the company, but, like, it's a comment to work on a project for 6 months. I was like, well, grand. And he went, right, fine, go on. Because, again, I got to the stage where I was like, there's someone else on my team who I think is actually way smarter than me. You surround yourself with smart people, that's another thing you do. and like he's now doing the job that I used to do, but the plan was literally I do this for 6 months, come back and figure something out. That 6 months came to an end after 5.5 months, and then I was like, what am I gonna do? And literally within a week, within actually 10 days, I had been given the opportunity to go over to the States to set up the retail business. I was like
Doesn't happen by accident.
things just happen though as well. Like, you know, it's amazing timing and stuff, like, and they don't. Yeah, you have to work hard and you have to show it, like, you know. But so that's the opportunity I got, and it was like come over for 6, 9, 12 months. That's it. Like secondment, come over, set up the team, set up the business, get some sports books built, and then be able to, you know, identify someone who's gonna be able to run it and like go back to Ireland. And they just wouldn't let me. And they just made it too much of a carrot to not stay there for a few years. So I sort of committed to a couple of up to maybe 4 years of being over there. But to be honest, if like in 3 months' time I feel like it's not working out, I'll just go back. Like what? Like that's the way I look at things. Like it's like, no, I'm not handcuffed to it. I don't have to do it. I just change my mind. Again, that's sort of the power of like everyone needs to realise they can always change their mind. It's always in your control to change your mind. But for me, I'm doing this as a big challenge in my career. And like, you know, I had a normal, I want to say, like family life at home. That has created a different relationship with my kids, and I spend a lot more time with them now, believe it or not.
Yeah, it's ironic.
Yeah, it's funny. Like obviously not the same regular face to face, but just the way things are. Like when I come back, I'm there. I'm school in the morning, collect them from school, like, and do things in the afternoon. Like, I put them to bed. If I was here, like I'd be working Monday to Friday. So it's just different than like I've got like a lot of. I think probably some people probably like dropped off from my radar because of it. Some was been my fault, and some was probably because they just they thought like, how can you do that? Like, how could you do that on your kids?
Yeah,
stuff, you know?
it's a weird one. Obviously, being close to you, we see all the ins and outs and all that. I mean, it's obviously fair to say you're doing this so that you can provide more stuff for them later, so it's a chunk of their life. I think at any stage of life, like I don't know, I definitely couldn't do it, and absolutely not now with a 3-year-old. I don't know if I could do it in general, but like I have, like what you have with the girls, I kind of have anyway. Like I spend a lot of time with my daughter, but I also think when you're here, the fact that you're spending so much time with them at hours that most dads typically wouldn't see their kids is way different to the typical parent. They'll just say typical parent is 9 to 5, gone in the morning, back in the evening, an hour before bedtime, and off you go. And that's just a cycle.
Yeah.
And I think that's shit. Like, so who's to tell you what to do, first of all, but who's to say that what you're doing is worse or better? Because you know, if you go away with the kids, you realise, I think you said this to me as well, when they have a week with you or 24/7, like they come back a different person.
Yeah.
They just get so much growth and absorb so much around you. And I noticed that in Anya, your youngest daughter, like she was 5 last week and all that, and I'd seen her just a week before, which means you were with her for like the last 10 days or whatever. And she was banging out like really elaborate sentences to me today and all that. But you know, she looked older. She looked more mature, just having your presence around there and just all that sort of stuff as well. So, and yeah, well I'd say like it's probably hard for them to not have you in arm's reach all of the time, the quality time you're spending on what you're doing for them by doing this. You're leading by example to what's possible and all that. And so when they have big decisions where like, oh, do I go? Do I stay? Do I do this? What am I capable of? They're all examples, and they know you love them inside out and all that sort of stuff as well. So there's layers to everything, and there's all sorts of human stuff going on and all that. But I think we know by now, even by this podcast, deep down you're doing the right thing for the right reasons and all that sort of stuff. So that's your right.
Time will tell, I suppose. Like, you know, but like if I think it's the right thing, I'm gonna stick to it. And I have some tough days. I'm sitting over there, you know. But like I just weigh it up, see how it goes, you know. I think it's gonna be really beneficial for them in the long run, and for me as well. Like it's fulfilling the stuff that challenges me, and I think it puts me in position to do stuff as well. Maybe when I come back that I probably wouldn't have taken the chance or risk to do before this opportunity, and we'll see.
That's another thing that we'll probably have a recurring theme of most of the podcasts. You'll see as time tells. But just that, like I generally think we're here just to evolve. And if you're just stagnating or whatever, you're just not really helping the human population, like, or whatever like that. So I think that wants to just not even about doing more, but just doing better. getting closer to our own centre or our own truth or what's humanly possible, you know, and just raising the gene pool standard a little bit. I just think it's another virtuous type of thing that's important for staff. Going back to business, I want to get a little bit of your skills. So Keith's been a tremendous help in the gym. Like, from what I saw, he was like a member for like 2 years before I even knew he was shit at what he did. Just to give him abuse. So Keith kind of mapped out a few business plans for us, and yeah, it may have taken me a few years to listen. But you have a tremendous skill at kind of just mapping out, like I said, seeing the end goal is like, okay, well, here's what's possible. And you look at the figure, you're like, what? And he's like, no, look, here, this, that goes, and 10 minutes later, you're like, holy shit, that's really possible. So if I could use some of your business expertise or your world-class cop on, I think we like to do here, which is kind of building up from, you can go from 1 star to 11, you can go straight to 5 star if you want to. I think you've two sides of this. You've the customer experience, which by helping all of your team do better, you help the customer experience, which must be the end goal, I'm sure. So if you want to talk me through what you see as being a 1 star shitty customer experience up to a 5 star, which is, again, I think a good standard. 5 stars should be a standard, high standards. And then we'll set the dreams in motion a little bit with 6 and 7 all the way up to 11 stars if you want to. And I'm going to check my phone again.
So talk me through
Very worried about the lights.
Talk me through a really bad one, or my timing is good. Talk me through a really bad experience for a customer. In any field.
It's very interesting we use the word in that sense, cop on. It's one thing I always talk about. Like, there's most, like, I think that's what's helped me a lot is cop on, because I'm definitely far from the smartest person in the room. I'm far from the smartest person in my team. But some people just don't have cop on. And I think that cop on thing is like, well, like, what do you expect? And like, again, why I still just love doing businessy stuff, and like talk about what like things that I want to like to do in the future, and whether it's any product that people are interacting with, like whether it's you're going to get coffee, whether you're going to get a meal, whether you're going to buy a pair of jeans or whatever. It's like some people or some companies or some brands are successful for a reason, and it's not always because they have the most expensive or the cheapest or the best quality or whatever. It's got this mix of things, and one of them is like you feeling loved almost. It's like, they thought about me, they actually thought about me. They didn't just like open the door and say it's whatever, what's that, 10. It's just like you felt looked after when you went in there, because you were spending your hard-earned money, to get that experience. It doesn't matter what the experience is, playing golf, anything. I take everything as all as the same, and the approach that I take even now, where I'm lucky enough to be in the position to be trying to almost like as part of a team run a business that like we have real influence on, is that like, the people who you compete with are the people who do things really well and sell to other people, not like your competitor down the road that does sportsbook. And we've had these conversations of like, the coffee shop across the road is as much a competitor to your gym as anything else, because people are just going to choose to go to one place or not. Where are they going to do it? I think it's just like, it's funny, the guys that set up Airbnb, this is the way they set it up.
This is where this question came from.
Oh, was it? Yeah.
Damn it.
Yeah, so they went and they seen a niche or a gap in the market where they were like, oh shit, I'm really struggling to book somewhere and have a good sort of, I don't say cost friendly, but like, something that I felt was value for money, no matter how much I spent on it, like experience, and went, shit, that was great, and it was easy, it was simple to do. So they started off with that 1 to 11 star. So they basically went and said, right, what does an 11 star experience look like? Because none of us are going to ever get an 11 star experience. An 11 star experience, let's take the gym for example. 11 star experience, I think, is like, right, that's where you should start off. As in, like, what's the very, very best? Not that you can do, what's the very, very best? If you said that's the best fucking gym ever, I'm gonna join there. It's like someone comes and gently wakes you in the morning, the smell of coffee beside your bed, ready to get you up, has the shower turned on already, and the towel is already there, you get up, you have your coffee, you have your out. You're actually ready now to leave the door to make your way to the gym. You don't go out the door though and get in your own car. You know, someone carries out your gym bag, puts it in the boot of the car, opens the door, and you get into the back of the car. They drive you to the gym. When you get to the gym, someone's there. They take your shoes off for you. You know, they hand you a towel, and then probably to exaggerate is they put the weights on the bar for you. You know, so I think it's like that's the way I start with like things and like.
So you still see that as an end and then we'll whittle back down rather than building up?
Yeah, so like I wouldn't like the Airbnb thing is like I would never thought of. I'm not saying I did a 11-star experience back, but when I think about things, I always go, oh, what's gonna look the best endpoint, and work my way back and go, oh, what's achievable.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's the way I would think about that, and like so the whole idea is then, what can you actually do, you know? So yeah, I can't do that. Okay, so I'm gonna take out these 4 pieces because realistically, I can't drive and pick up like my 10 members for the 6:30 class because I'm never going to be able to make all them cups of coffee in time and drive them all and do all their weights. But it's like, oh, but I can't have coffee ready for them when they come in. Oh, that's one. So you keep the coffee machine in. The place can be warm maybe when they get there, or there can be a place for them to put their shoes. So, or the music can be right, and like, so that's the way I think about it. It's like it's all about whatever way you're touching or interacting with like that person or customer you're trying to give this experience to is you know, making them feel happy and making them feel like, oh, I didn't have to actually ask for anything here. I didn't have to point out that something was wrong. People then forget about like the cost, whether it's cheap or expensive, and if they also feel like that the people who work there love working there, and like literally don't just work there for a job, you know, actually enjoy the interaction with other people, or they can see that like there's love being put into building a product. Like Apple never sold like the fastest laptop in the world. They sold this experience of like, you know, cool, it feels nice, it looks nice, the keyboard is nice, the screen is you know, they didn't sell like, you know, it's 256 megabits and all this sort of stuff, like, you know, just like you sell a pair of jeans, you don't sell it because it's like it's X denim thing. It's like no, it fits you like a glove and stuff like that. Like, I think that's what make people feel, oh, I love this.
It's interesting. I never thought about it this way. You mentioned someone who loves working for the company, and I would always think someone who loves serving people. So I wouldn't think about Siobhan, who works in the cafe, is there because she's really good with people and she likes people. I would never think Siobhan was in the cafe because she loves the company. Because she loves the company, she'll do everything that the company stands for the person. And I haven't really thought about it that way.
I think it's both. It's like that's the career. That's why I chose to do that. But you can do that anywhere.
Yeah.
You know, you can, like, any job you can do anywhere in any business. But it's like who you gravitate towards, where you can, like, I could be doing what I'm doing in a company that sells fucking butter. I just won't be as happy because, like, I don't have a passion for butter, right? Or I do. Or I can work for another sports betting company who, like, don't have like an innovative, like, young, like, workforce, and like that people like have values and respect each other, and there's no hierarchy, and you can walk into anyone's like office. No, even offices is the thing, like, you know, you can go to anybody in the company and have the conversation or question them and have open conversations, and like, you know, I think like that just creates a nice environment, you know, and it's just so important. Like, happier people are like more productive. Simple as that, like.
Who knew?
You know?
Yeah, I think it's interesting that when I think about the 5-star experience, I think, and I've thought for quite some time that, and you see, because the bar kind of gets raised, and I'll use a cafe as a reference again, as like, specialty coffee is now standard. Like, it should be standard. If I go into a cafe and there's not good coffee, I'm like, why not? Because it's not as foreign as it used to be. Like, it's not new. It's like, you know, we're 6 years into this third wave of coffee or whatever. And so coaching, like specialty coaching, as in this individual, that individual, are all getting looked after in what would be a high standard, which is now specialty as standard. It should be the standard. And so my 5 stars experience is actually just, that should be basic. You know, I can't see why anybody would not have a special service as standard.
But not everyone has the same thought process as to what they're trying to achieve. Like, are you trying to like if you're thinking you're trying to run a business to make money, you've lost already. Like,
Yeah.
you know, like if you think you're trying to create experiences that are going to make people happy when they interact with whatever you're selling, and you're a bit more onto a winner there, like, you know, because then like that the business part's going to happen then, like, you know. I think people think that the wrong way. This is like, you like, I know we're talking about the coffee thing, but like we'll probably talk about coffee more. I'm surprised it took us this long to talk about coffee, because we're obsessed. But you go in and spend $3.50 for this shit cup of coffee out of a machine because they're like, oh, but we can buy it for cheaper and make it on this machine really quickly and hand it out. It's like, yeah, but that means then someone who really likes coffee is not going to come, and do you not get that? And I think that's where people miss out, like, you know. And that's why companies or businesses or like some are successful and some just aren't, like, you know. And they just fade away, and it's always the ones that like brands hang around because people go, I can relate to what this means.
If you were to say one thing that made a business successful and versus a business that would fail, like you kind of said it, but like, could you pinpoint what you think that would be?
People.
Okay.
It's all about people.
The people who run the place.
Nobody like the people who run the place. Like, people don't run the place. It's the thing. Like, you know, it's everyone does, and that's what people like, I think, forget. And that's why like the hierarchy thing. Like, it's important in some way, so you know which way to like navigate to help you to open doors or get answers. But what it doesn't do is sort of allow you to be open and grow and question, like, you know, that means like you need to be able to skip that, and everyone needs to be on the same level. And like the person running the company, as you say, like, or what people say, like, oh, the CEO's running the company and everyone that works for him, it's the opposite way around. It's like, you know, oh no, you, like, the people who are in charge or are giving you responsibility to manage or lead people, it's their work, like, they're working for them, like, you know. Like, I don't feel like that, like, the people on my team or the people in, like, another thing, like, has been really, I'm delighted to be able to do was like create jobs. It's like the 150 people probably now that like didn't have jobs, but like they're new jobs that didn't exist a year ago, if not more, probably 200 jobs. That like, yeah, I work for them, like, they don't work for me, you know. And I think the businesses that think the opposite way around, yeah, they're the ones that fail quicker, like, that they don't think that, oh, actually it's the people who are happy and there's a culture and you communicate and feel respected and appreciated. They're the ones that are actually doing all the really, really hard work. You're just trying your best to help, you know, identify or point someone in the right direction or whatever you can do.
Yeah, I think I feel the same way, and I think it came from you as well. You kind of pinpointed that culture is such an important thing. You've said it a couple of times now. I feel the exact same way about the studio, in that, like, I've always said if any one person gets in the way of the culture, including me, they have to be taken out of the equation. You know, and it has been me sometimes. Sometimes I feel like I've stunted the growth of the studio and had to take a step back and check myself and all that. The culture is always going to be the most important thing. And like I said, someone might spark the idea, they might not be the person to run it day to day, but just the culture, it's almost like its own ecosystem of interaction and, you know, feel good vibes and all that sort of stuff as well. So yeah, it's really interesting. It's cool. And it's tough to grow a culture, and it takes time, and daily
really
care and
tough.
attention and love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when you're growing a culture, you create a brand, and the brand then, the culture permeates out into the brand, and it's why people then feel affiliated to that brand, whatever that might be. It doesn't really matter. Like, you know, people are just so brand aware. You know, and like, people think brand or think expensive. I don't mean that. I just mean it's just a name. Like, it could be a local coffee shop, but like everyone in the locality, they all go there and they say like that Jimmy's Tar is the best place on earth, because like, yeah, well, that's how it is, like, you know. It's local. It's not just a big like international global brands. Like, we can all talk about like why like Nike is successful or Coke or whatever, like, you know. But
Seth Godin says it, musing over him hugely over the last while, but he's like, a brand is a promise, that's all it is. It's like, I know when I see this, my expectation is this, and my expectation will be back. That's the brand, that's the promise. That's your relationship with them.
Yeah.
Check my phone
exactly
again.
what I'm saying.
A little change in direction. We are still good. We're on 14. I want to ask you, and ye, make yourself comfy, right? Super informal. Could you list 1, 2 or 3 female influences? You don't have to name them if you don't want to, but in what way have women impacted you?
Yeah. Yeah, good question. Yeah, definitely I mentioned like my dad's mum, my nana. She's one of the single biggest influences on my life. Just an absolutely amazing person. Again, was that type of person that was like, you know, make yourself happy. It's important to be happy when you're happy, you know. Always listened, always was there to give advice, and she did it in a way that just wasn't telling you what to do. But when she just dropped the little nuggets of advice, you just realised, oh, fuck, I better do it because I think she's right, like, you know. And she passed away last year. But she, I could say she lived a great life, you know. But she was a huge influence on my life, and I was lucky that like both sets of grandparents I lived on the same road. Growing up, a blessing and a curse for certain members of the family. But I was looking like was able to like 4 doors up, 5 doors up, was able to drop up to my nana for a cup of tea in the evenings when she came home from work and just have a chat.
Nice.
Like a lot of people don't do that. Like everyone should do that. Young people should definitely talk to older people. They do know more than us. Yeah, she was a huge influence on my life. And like there's. I won't name a name because people won't have a clue who they are, but like there's like the biggest mentor I've had throughout my career like has been a woman and she's worked for quite a long time now in Paddy Power, like, you know.
Okay.
And I think that's one of the biggest things anyone should ever do. And if I go back just to careers, like, you know, find a mentor, you know, and you don't go up to someone, ask them to be your mentor, but you'll just find that person.
Yeah.
But it's like it's always about asking for help or just asking for advice, and they're there. And just really respected this person, and she just had an amazing career, and she just was always there to talk and give you time. And you know, especially as well in a company that, like, you know, it's sports related, it's gambling related, it's very high on males, and it will be, as much as, like, you know, if you go in and work for L'Oreal or Mac, they're not going to be very high on males, they're going to be very high on females, because that's just the way things are. And that sounds a bit weird, but like it's just like, yeah, like males index higher on sport and gambling, so there's a company that does that, it's going to be more males. So she stood out for me in that, as just not because she was a woman, but just because like the way she did things. And like I've always had I think then just I've always had women that I've like worked with, or even like some friends, like I just interact with them differently, and like, yeah, I just like, again, not very many, like, not going on about naming names or mentors, but like, yeah, seeing like the whole women equality, men, workplace, all sorts of stuff has like escalated like crazily over the last few years.
So you think, because that was the next question, is do you think the women do get enough respect and placement and, you know, opportunity in the workforce and the business structure as it is? Because I know it's been a thing historically that hasn't been very even. And I know you're talking genre to genre, like Mac versus Sportsbook is like slightly different in terms of who works where or whatever. But yeah, what's your kind of thoughts on women's?
Like, I'm not. I don't know how to say this. Sounding like making it sound so controversial, but like I think a lot of women get a lot of chances, but like don't take them.
Okay.
And I think others in other scenarios we like push and elevate them, a woman, for the reason of equality.
Okay.
And I think it's all about just everyone just looking at the next person, that it's another person, it's not a man, it's not a woman, and then I think we'll all start to move and respect people's views and values and like expertise or whatever for who they are, regardless of being a man or a woman. And that's the approach I've always had, because look, I've said like I've mentors with women,
Yeah,
grandmother's probably the biggest thing, and I have a lot of friends who are women, and I think doing that will bring the equality thing rather than trying to force it. I think the problem is trying to force stuff. Trying to force stuff is always bad.
Yeah.
It's changing, because changing attitudes is different, like changing outlooks and approaches. You know, when you get to force it, I think it becomes, I think it becomes a problem. Like, you know, Like I literally by pure fucking chance, like most of the teams I've worked with or people I've heard have probably been either more women or close to 50-50. So I would always say like I just don't. I just look at someone and I just go like, what have you done? Like, and when I look at the CV as well, I never look at where they went to college or what education they have. I went, what did you do? Oh, your name is whatever. And then, but I'm very, very conscious of it.
Yeah.
In the workplace, of
Brilliant.
trying to make sure that, like, you know, if I can do that little bit extra, or, you know, be a help in some way, not like a silly push up for the sake of it, like, but just like, you're really good. Shit, there's other people aren't noticing that, and no one's actually saying that, and it's probably and most likely because you're a woman, which is just
Okay.
ludicrous.
So you think it does exist, and
It definitely exists. I just think the problem is we're not going about it the right way. No, like,
Okay.
not with perfecting it, like, but it definitely does exist. But at different levels of the spectrum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Only a few questions left. What was I gonna say? Oh yeah, in terms of the general business structure, and by business structure I mean how businesses are run, or how it's kind of systemized that people do 9 to 5s. Is there anything you would change about how businesses are run from a employee standpoint, or how we think about our careers? Like you said, like it might be like flexibility, and how Google don't want, you know, a leave there is not a requisite anymore, you know, stuff like that. Is there anything you would, if you were in charge of, like, you know, X amount of businesses and the way a big global thing was structured, what would you do differently than most places do, if anything?
I don't know. I can't really pinpoint to say what I do differently. Like, but I think one thing I've always been a fan of is holidays.
Okay.
And
Good.
like just getting your work done, and like I find like so many people like get worried that they have the doctor's appointment next morning. I'm not going to be until 10:30 and 11, and I'm going to have to tell you. And it's like, you have life. Like, if you get your work done, yes, we'll get on and do it. Like, and I think everyone should be taking on the merits of like fulfilling what they're expected to do, what they've signed up to do, and nothing more. And it shouldn't matter actually if it takes 20 hours to do that, or 40.
Brilliant.
Or where you do it from. That's like, I take that view day to day. Not everyone agrees with it. But I think again that just makes people happier, and at times it makes them actually more committed to what they're doing, and actually helps them move on in their careers, because they're like, they don't feel as much under pressure. But like, taking time to yourself is important. Like, life's not all about work. It's a huge piece of it. But like, if you're not taking that away time, you're actually not going to be your best self for doing the work either, or for the people that you're there with, if you're coming in tired. And
of course,
like, so it's going to impact like the culture and how you interact with people in the workplace and stuff like that. Like, they would be the key things that, like, if I was ever lucky enough to have my own business one day, like, they would be the things that I think, you know, I would definitely sort of try and over index on, is that like, making people aware that what's important is you do your job, not where you do it, how you do it, what time you do it at. Just that, like, you know, I respect you, I'm not going to question, like, you know, you, and I have like faith in you to do what you're doing. Like, otherwise, like, you wouldn't be hired, or you wouldn't be working here.
One of the best quotes I read was from the book High Output Management, and I actually put the book down after this page, which was only like 40 pages into it, because I got what I needed and I don't need anything else at the moment from it. It was like a year ago. Is he basically says, like, I work until I'm tired, and then I go home, because I know there's more to do tomorrow, and there's always more to do. So why would you stress over stuff not being done when there's always going to be more to do? So just work until you've done what you've done that day, and then go home, do what you do, rest up, and go again. That's nice, because it just takes, like, rather than being a stress of like, oh, there's so much more to do, it's like, no, actually there's always stuff, so just relax. Downtime is downtime.
Sometimes deadlines, we'll get
that. Cool. If there was one thing that you could share with everybody from age 3 to 73, regardless of background, regardless of where, anything that would permeate or resonate with every single person you met, even if you didn't know them, whether it was an item, whether it was a quote, whether it was a book or advice, what do you think you'd be able to give that person? No pressure.
That's a tough question.
Well,
I think it's back to what we discussed near the right start, was like, be self-aware, question yourself, and don't worry about what other people think. Simple. That's it.
Cool.
Like, it's difficult to achieve it,
Mm-hmm.
but like, that's it. Like, always be aware of not how other people portray you, because that's what like think caring what people think. It's like, always be aware of what you're doing and how you're coming across and the things you do on a daily basis. Are you happy with yourself for being that person?
Okay.
And that's, I think, the self-awareness thing. And I think if you can do that and like not worry about what other people think, that like 99% of things don't matter, like, I think you'll be a lot happier person. Because I know when I get into that position, I'm a lot happier. It's not easy to get there, but I think like if someone said this to me when I was 16, I think
Yeah.
I would have went, holy shit, what are you on about? Okay. Maybe would have turned the light bulb on 20 years previous to when it did go on.
Yeah. I think all the things of value are our life work anyway, and that we're always in that constant state of just like going through it for the rest of our life, which is great. Again, the work is never done. We're always kind of working on things. That's really, really nice. We have talked about pretty much everything. I would like to just ask, maybe in one instance, has there been one particular moment in your life that has changed you, as an instance where it was just like, oh, I'm a different person because of this, or maybe like where you exerted your power of choice, where it was the thing that may not have been the popular thing or what people expected you to do, and I think we've talked about it a little bit already, but can you pinpoint one thing that's changed you most, or one of the choices that has defined you?
Probably the choice I made to take the opportunity to go to the US.
Okay, very recent, so.
Yeah, I think that like didn't sit well with a lot of people. Still doesn't. But I talked to the people that I felt were the right people to talk to about. I got varying different levels of advice, and like just made sure that like, you know, the people that were the actually singly most important in actually me making that move and who I was impacting had the conversations with them, most of them, but like having the support of like my ex was the biggest thing for me in doing that.
Okay.
You know, and once I had that, I was like fucking doing it, like, you know, and it changed a lot for me after all I had gone through in the previous couple of years. It was like, oh shit, and so it's made me now think a lot differently about a lot of other things.
Okay.
So
Cool.
yeah,
Nice.
that'll be it.
Sweet. At age 50, which age 50 or 60 or 70, let's say, life is going quick.
It's not that
do you
far away.
do you see yourself doing what you're doing now? Do you see yourself running a business from the background, kind of just not seeing doing stuff? Or do you see yourself retired, golfing, and kind of rekindling your love for table tennis?
Probably more golfing than rekindling my love for table tennis when I'm 50, 55. But yeah, just having more control over my day-to-day life, probably. Yeah,
Okay.
at that age, like, I don't think I'd ever stop working.
Yeah.
And it's not about, work, but like being active. I'm just not one for sitting down. Like, you know, I'm only trying now recently to sit down and read again. Like, you know, just one thing like I used to love to do when I was younger, and then just went out of habit of it, like, and find it hard to focus on when I'm doing now, because I'd rather be up and out and actually physically doing something or moving along rather than rereading pages of stuff, like, as much as I love doing it. But yeah, like, it's hard to know like what anybody's going to be doing at that age, but like I just like to feel I'd be in a position that, like, you know, so there's no worries or stresses from a like financial aspect, and being able to just go, oh, I can do the things I want to do, I can support my kids in the way I want to support them, spend time with them, spend time with my friends, and then still have like challenges and stuff, like whether it be trying to play golf or run a business, which is probably what I'd say I'll definitely end up doing, because I think it's the one thing I've always sort of moved towards, and I don't know what that would be, but it will be more from the perspective of, like, you know, oh, this is something to do on a daily basis. Not like working 90-hour a week and killing yourself type of thing. It's just like being involved and like having something to do.
Cool. Cool. Is there anything you'd like to share, add, let us know, or anything like that to finish off on then?
No, just thanks for doing this.
Thank you very much.
But yeah, I can't believe it went on this long.
I know, yeah.
It's turned into a business podcast.
Hey.
half life, half business.
Well, that was the thing, and I think the podcast being about different people who you'll see over the next while as well, is like it's not going to be about fitness or movement. Like probably a very low amount of the time it will be, because people have interesting stories of loss and trauma and all these other things that I think are good and impactful people there.
Which we didn't even talk about. But like
Yeah.
that was one of the big things in my life over the last few years as well. Like is you know, getting back fit and healthy, and you know, I think it's a huge thing. It's very important to do. You know, fit body and healthy mind and stuff like that. Like it makes a big difference. Like, you know, it made a big difference to me in doing that for 2 or 3 years before I joined the gym, and then joining the movement studio. It's been interesting the last few years.
Yeah, cool. Thank you very much for your honesty. Nice to sit down and chat to you. Some things I didn't know about you obviously as well, so I'm much appreciating. Yeah.
Cool.
My man, thank you very much.
Cheers.
Cheers.
And it recorded the whole thing.